again here. This is Galleon Gold. It's the West Cache project here. Disclaimer, and then we'll just start. The Timmins camp, obviously, you know, there's been 80 or 120 million ounces produced there over time, back from the 1890s onward. I was in the camp, we'll call it 2002 through 2010. We had the Glimmer project I bought privately, and then we took it public with Apollo Gold. We built the Black Fox project. And I'm using the same team that we used up there for mining, permitting, everything. Excellent team, they know what they're doing. So what we did, we started with re-drilling a known area that had never had a mine just outside of town. We amassed a land position at 10,000 hectares. We put in roughly about 50,000 meters of drilling on top of roughly the other 160,000 meters that was there defining the ore body. Now, being there's no mines there, that means there's no outcrop. So geologically, you couldn't go into this property and sample the surface or anything. And it was kind of left behind. Teck was there drilling, Dome was there drilling in past history. And, you know, a lot of folks said, well, gee whiz, the ore body must have been offset. Well, it wasn't. It was sitting right there. The glaciers just ripped the top of it and buried the back of it with sand and gravels. Now, just a quick shot here. Who are shareholders? Eric Sprott on the right side. He was the first one I went to and said, hey, Eric, I've got a high-grade deposit here that's buried, and we need to do some drilling. We need to pick it up. And he said, well, how much do you need, Dave? I said, I need about $3 million to kick the company off. And he put it in, and that was about 2.5 years ago, and we're off and running. We've got CCM Capital. It came from the Explorer side after the merger. They're still with us. They've got about 8% of the company, and that masses about 63.5 million shares. You got some options, the warrants, and that sort of thing. So we've got about 75 million outstanding, and a market cap that it's kind of embarrassing to say, well, geez, how come we're there when we have 1.56 million ounces of gold? Well, everybody's looking at themselves saying, what the hell happened to the market? Well, when somebody figures it out, I guess we'll right ourselves on the market cap. In the meantime, we're going to drive ahead with our project. Now, just taking a look at it, if you start on the right side, you'll see the Hislop, you'll see the Stock Mine and Mill, which I purchased in 2002, and the Black Fox, which used to be Glimmer, that we purchased and built that and operated till 2010 till we merged it. And then you move down the trend, you have the Aquarius, that's still, I believe, Agnico, and then Bell Creek, Hoyle Pond, and the Hollinger Pit, McIntyre, and Dome, that's the Newmont Group. Then you go to us, and then on our southwest side, we've got the original Lakeshore. Tony McCooch built that when I was working on Black Fox, but Pan American Silver has that today. And you can see our land laid out there, roughly about 10,000 hectares, and I'll blow it up here for you. The top part of it, this is the part we went to lease on. I did that right away. We got the lease roughly about December of 2022. We finished a PEA at the same time on the project. And where the yellow area here is, that's where the roughly, we'll say, of the 211,000 meters, roughly 175,000 meters was used in the wire framing. That accounted for 391 core holes out of the whole database, which is 554 core holes, I believe, on that. So in the lower Ogden and Price, we've still got to drill those one day, but we've got a lot of exploration to do. So I can say we're probably about 8% drilled on this property. I spent the last year compiling with the consultants, doing different permitting work, finishing that all off and getting ready for the next 60 days where we're going to hand the ministry the documents and the application that says we'd like to do a bulk sample underground. Keep in mind, there's been no mining on this property. It's not a mystery, you know, of what's down there, but it answers a lot of questions doing feasibility work and pre-feas work when you take a project underground and do a big bulk sample, and that's what we intend on doing on this project. But we're dealing with roughly about a 1.6 cutoff. My job here is not to take this database and turn it into a mine. It's to say, how do you build a mine? The way you build it, you start with the underground end of it. You bring the grades up and that sort of thing. But you can see where the ounces fall in the indicated and inferred. You add them up. You're not supposed to add them up, but it's 1.56 million ounces. How big is this going to be? You know, 3 million, 5 million. If you look at the templates and the mines around us, they all start at about 2.5 and go to 10 million ounces over time, and then the bigger ones go to 30 million ounces. But the key is here on our PEA study that P&E Consultants out of Toronto did at the third party, it turned out at $1,700 gold, 378 million. And you can see what I'd like to show is the cash cost. What I wanted to see, do we have a cash cost under 1,000, Why would you take this project forward? Well, it says they have economics here, but it's our job now in feasibility and pre-feas studies to actually bring up the overall grades, bring down the cash cost, and make a great project out of it through time. So anyway, if you look at it today, I'm not sure where gold is at $1,963 or something there. We're somewhere between 530 and 600 million market cap there, with probably a pretty good return of over 40%. So anyway, what we did is we said, okay, let's wireframe the ore body. Let's look at the east zone, the main east zone extension, the west zone, and the north zone. And we started infilling another roughly 54,000 meters of drilling around these zones. And voila, we hit what was called the zone number 9. And we call that the south zone area. And it's a little bit different. There's the quartz feldspar porphyry, which is the main, I'm a mining engineer, but I'll quote geology here. It's quartz feldspar porphyry zones that are hosting the main zones. The bulk sample area that we're targeting in the south area and the number 9 is really a volcanic unit. It's a sediment hosted. It's more consistent. It's roughly about 10, 12 meters wide, has a pretty good strike, and what dip it has is roughly 1,000 meters in dip, down dip. And that, if you look at the down deep area, and I'll put the cross section up here for you, what you see is zone D, C, and B. That's the quartz feldspar porphyries. And then in the main zone, on the right side is what you have is the number 9, which is the sediment-hosted volcanic unit. We found another zone, which is called the south zone, right beside it. Each one of these structures can host 1 million ounces of gold. And what we said is, okay, well, let's just take a ramp down and let's take a look at bulk sampling the number 9 zone to start with. And that's where we've got more of a purple square around it of what we're going to do. And then the west deep area you can see is pretty far down in that area. This is the first, we'll call it the cross section I looked at before I picked up the project about 2.5, 3 years ago. And there was a lot of holes that went through all the shear zone. That was all fine. But you look down deep, what's called the west deep down there. And you look at it and you say, well, gee whiz, 9.1 grams, 11 meters, 5.4 at 11 meters, 8 grams at 15 meters wide, and 5 at 15. They hit the Holy Grail down there, but they didn't follow it up dip. Now, I'm not going to take credit. The geologist came to me and goes, geez, Dave, let's just project it. Put a ruler on there, and let's project it up. And within the first 50 or 80 meters of a hole to the surface, you're going to hit that system if it's sitting there. And sure enough, it was sitting there. So my hat was off to the geology group that said, look, we've got an ore chute that is a mine maker. And that's how you start a mine. You start with a high-grade ore chute, and then you work out from there. Now, will there be a pit here? There will be someday. We've modeled pits. And in my professional opinion, it's really not the way to go in the Timmins camp to start with an open pit, especially when you got glacial fill over the top of you. The reclamation plan for that's probably a ski resort, and I'm not going to propose that to the Ontario government and the Minister of Mines. And as you know, we've got a Minister of Mines that used to be a Placer Dome employee and Executive Vice President of Finance and whatnot, and he knows mining very well. And he asked me, he said, are you going to propose a pit, Dave? And I said, I will propose a pit, but give me about 3 years, and then I will put the pit out there to you. He goes, good, start with the underground and move from there. So anyway, we'll start with the underground on the decline. Permitting goes a little bit quicker when you're doing a bulk sample as compared to the full mine, because you're not trying to permit tailings ponds and the mill sites. What you're going to end up permitting is really the footprint of the waste that comes out from your ramp system and your development from underground. So it's much more clear cut for the ministry to approve that than a full mining complex. So we'll do it one step at a time, and it'll take us about 2 to 3 years to get a full mine built on this project. Now the plant, when you look at on the right side, the yellow area just to the southwest, that's where the Pan American silver mine is, and then you move to the northeast and you find the Dome mines and move on to Black Fox. But the left side of it is the West Cast deposit. You see a similarity between that and our neighbors, which is Pan American Silver's West Mine. You see it's a ramp access into the ore bodies. They do have a shaft. We will have a shaft eventually. Where the centroid of our deposit is, we don't know yet, but we'll figure that out as time goes on. But on the right side, you can see where the south zone of the number 9 is. That's what we're going to take on first. And what have we been working on within the environmental end of it? Well, we've had Story working on it. We've had Nordman working on it, doing all the geotechnical work. And this requires a full closure plan permit. We've got that done. We've got most of the appliance approvals ready to go, permits to take water, the consultants, baselines, everything's been ongoing. We started that from day one 2.5 years ago and said, if we're gonna have a mine, we have to have a database to work with, and we did, and we finished that. And our next week is the final consultation. That's our partners, which are the First Nations. That'll be Matagami and Flying Post. So we've got both of them up there to work with. They've been great to work with us. They've got all our documents, and they've reviewed them, and we'll have our last meeting with them before we actually take them to the ministry, even though the ministry's seen all kinds of different parts and pieces to them, and they're well aware of what we're gonna do. It requires your partner's approval, and that'll come most likely next Tuesday or Wednesday up in Timmins, Ontario. And I did bring my snow gear because I believe it's snowing up there. Okay, this is the plan view. This is what everything's based upon when you're doing your permitting. If you leave the town of Timmins and you stop at Horton's, grab a coffee, in 13 minutes, you will be out to the mine site. Now, I've never built a mine this close to town. It's amazing to find a piece of ground that had never been mined in this whole time frame that was still sitting there. So anyway, we've got to put the entrance in, we've got to do the electrical drops. The power company's already working on that, on what it's gonna take to put the drops into the transformers, put the mine rescue facilities, the dry facilities, and then you've gotta go put your road in with your pipelines over to where the shop would be, and then what's called the box cut. Now the box cut will be where the portal is. And being sand and gravel, we've got to actually pull the sand and gravel back, lay it back, that's where the box cut, and expose the hard rock. And as I mentioned before, there was no outcrops to actually work with before. Where we're gonna actually put the box cut in the portal, there's about 8 meters of sediment fill there, and it can go as deep as 25 meters on the property here. So anyway, we're very well aware of what we've got to do to actually get it excavated, to get the ramp put in. Now, the ramp system, will we do it ourselves? No, we'll hire a contractor. Dumas is in town. You've got Redpath down there, Sudbury. You've got Tyson Mining. You've got the whole crew. Now, when we put our numbers together on this project to do it, we actually canvassed all the contractors, so they're well aware of the bidding that'll take place in the next 90 days on this project. Now, it'll be the underground ramp system. You can see where the haul truck's coming out on it, going down. That'll be the first 1,250 meters. Followed by another 1,250 meters of internal spiral down to the 150-meter level. That'll be the top cuts into the stope 1 and 3, then the 180-meter level, which are the bottom cuts from 1 and 3, and the top cuts for number 2 and 4. And the total will be about 86,500 tons, where the average grade should be about 8 grams. The gold will be about 22.6 thousand ounces. Now, is the idea to make money here? Sure it is. Can we make money? We believe we can, but this is part of a feasibility study, and you need this data, you need the information. SGS Labs did a great job of recoveries, but we're gonna actually prove it by putting it into a custom mill and saying, okay, what kind of gold do we get out at the end of the day? So diluted grade, you're probably gonna end up going from 8.1 to about 7.1 when you're done with that. Now, this is the permitting schedule. You know, it's plus or minus when you're building a project that's actually just a bulk sample underground, but right now it's starting in 2024. And this is what I call the pre-development work, and then followed by the decline work. And then you've got the actual construction of the stopes, and then shipping the ore to a custom mill, and then determining how much gold you're gonna recover at the end of the day out of that. So anyway, the costs are not cheap. It's about 31 million Canadian. Gold sales should be about 50 at $1,900 gold, and we should make a little bit of money at the end of the day. Now, we're not gonna be doing the wave at $18.9 million. That 18.9 will probably pay some of the interest depending on how we finance the cost of this. But at the same time, we're gonna propose, soon as we get the first couple stopes, expansion underground to the next stoping area to test mine. So by the time we get done, instead of, say, taking a full feasibility drilling from the surface, we're gonna have probably 3 or 4 main test stopes within the mining areas already set up. So about 60% of your feasibility will be as built for the underground end of it. This is just a snapshot of the structure itself on the 3D modeling here. You can see where the number 9 is, and then you can see the ramp on the right-hand side of it. But one important thing is we've hit another south zone that looks duplicate to it over to the right. We've got a lot more drilling to do, but we'll take that on out of the ramp. We'll actually re-drill. Now, we did this at the Black Fox project. We drilled from the surface on 25 to 40 meter centers. Then we went underground down to the 260 meter at the Black Fox, and we drilled on 12.5 to 15 meter centers. a lot of what we said was not an ore body, all of a sudden, right in front of your eyes showed up, yep, the ore body's sitting right there when you get it on closer space centers. So that's what we're going to be doing, is drilling on a lot closer space centers to actually identify the number 9 zone, and we'll overprint that layout on the shear zones, and then we'll get over there on the big shear zones, and then we'll take a look at, do we need drilling on 12 to 15 meter centers there too. So the team, myself, I won't dwell on my background. It's heavy in the underground and open pit business over time, but I usually surround myself with a staff that really knows what they're doing. It makes me look good too. Like Lisa Buchan right here, she's my Vice President of Business Development. I call her my Vice President of everything. And Sonia Agostina, my Chief Financial Officer. So if you got any questions for those ladies, they're here for the next 2 days for that. But I've got Tim Smith. He's a Canadian. He's ran the Red Dog operation. He ran the different projects, up in Montana for me, heap leach operations, and he rebuilt Glimmer that became Black Fox. Ryan Lougheed was our general manager there. He's working on this project too. And then 2 very good geology, structural geologists, Nate Tewall and Leah Page, that, I can't say enough about them. They're real thinkers. They think out of the box. They find gold. I call them the gold finders. And then we've got a board that's very good. Mario Calantonio, an engineer from the Timmins area. Michael Hobart from Toronto here. He's Fogel Rubinoff. He's a mining lawyer and a securities lawyer. Gerhard Merkel. He's out of Germany, a good business guy. Dick Nana, I've worked with him for probably about 25 years. Dick was my executive vice president of exploration and development for the Black Fox project. He's retired, but boy, he just loves the Timmins camp here. And then J.T. O'Neill, finance, mining guy. He was at Jarrett Canyon when they packaged up Jarrett Canyon and working for Eric Sprott. Now, he wasn't Eric Sprott's appointee, but when Eric put the money, he said, who's your board? When I got to Jay, he said, well, J.T. O'Neill, he said, I don't have to put anybody on the board. I know he's very good. So anyway, we've got a good board of mining, finance, and legal people to help us take this company forward. One of the biggest things I can say is in the Timmins camp, these are big ore bodies. Take them slowly, work with them, bring them into production right. Don't trip and fall. Say, you can find examples around the world, Red Lake and different ones, where you hurry a little bit too fast. You don't get enough drilling. You don't do enough test mining. Well, we're going to take one step at a time under the pre-feas and then the feasibility and do it right with the test mining. Will we turn out a pre-feasibility study? We will. I'm not going to redo the previous PEA. We're going to move on to the bigger studies. The exploration on this property is tremendous. Once we have the bulk sampling permit to take it underground, which is underway now, we'll bring the drills back to the surface. As I said, we're only about 8 to 10% drilled in one area that I had marked as yellow. The rest of this property's got to be drilled. That's where the rest of your ounces really start flushing out. The yellow area that I described with the 1.54 is on the south Dexter Porcupine limb. We've got drill holes showing gold on the north limb. We have not taken on. I drilled the low-hanging fruit to get started with on this project. So, with being in elephant country, being in the right place in Timmins, Ontario, and we've got an experienced management team, we're gearing ourselves for success. So, we need one other thing. We need more shareholders. We need a market. So anybody that'd like to take a look at Galleon Gold, it's gggo.v out there. And it's a hell of a buy right now, and I'm sure there's a lot of good gold buys you'll hear about during this conference. But, I tell everybody, we've been Jacques Cousteauing it. We're so far underwater that Jacques Cousteau has to get us to the surface, but maybe everyone here can help us get there. So with that, I'll open it up for